Hello and welcome to In at the Side. I'm JK and I'm joined by the usual people of Neil Williamson and Dom Hardman, not only Andrew Gomarsall, MBE. Andrew, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Yes, 4 months into lockdown and still surviving.
Enjoying the lockdown hair, or have you had
Yeah,
the
my wife took the scissors, and I swear I was going to lose my ears. Uh, she was pretty brutal, and I was really looking forward to showcasing a fantastic Argentinian mullet, proper old school. Yeah, Diego Albanese turned up at Gloucester with a like full sort of short hair and this fantastic mullet here, and I had envy, so I've been trying to grow it, but no, it's all gone.
we still get some. There's a bit of a long bit going at the back there. So just shaved the sides and
Yeah.
just started again. Obviously, my colleagues here have decided they'd shaved theirs off completely.
Smart.
Well, mine was actually, it's almost like I knew this was going to happen because I did mine about a week before lockdown. Before everyone decided to do it through necessity, I decided to do it through choice. So, yeah, I don't know kind of what happened there.
Bad times. So how have you been keeping busy during the lockdown? Obviously, businessman yourself, director of is it your father's company it was?
Yeah,
Or,
yeah.
have you been keeping busy with work, or has there been other things keeping busy with?
Yeah, I mean, we were in lockdown pretty early, so we took I've got three daughters, and we took them out of school. So the 14-year-olds kind of get on with it, but the 7-year-old needed homeschooling. So I tried for one day and failed miserably. My wife took it on, so yeah, it's been full on at home, but also business wise. I mean, it absolutely kind of smacked you in the face with catastrophe. Especially, I'm in a services business, so we earn our revenue through logistics and people. And when you you stop that, you close the doors. I was pretty much 80% of my revenue gone, and I spent a lot of time last year forecasting, and I just ripped that up. It was brutal, absolutely brutal. But actually, what sport teaches you, you kick off. You got this fantastic plan to play the opposition and beat them, and then I think it was Mike Tyson, isn't it? The famous quote. You have a plan and then you get smacked in the face and it goes out the window. And you literally just had to react so quickly. So that's kind of one of my reasons for being in the company, and we flipped very quickly, and we did really well. And this is the kind of last month till we're all back from furlough. So I've got 65 staff, and it's been tough and longer hours. You think working from home would be a bit more cushy, but actually it's the reverse, especially when you're a business owner, the responsibility. And I've had sleepless nights, I must admit. It's been really, really tough. Sleepless nights in sport, but also in business. So it's we're still here and we're still doing pretty well, and everyone's coming back. And for us, in terms of services, the doors are opening. So there's a lot to look forward to. And I think this whole period's been a good thing for the rest of our lives, really. I really think it's been a good thing. Although it's been a challenge, it's been a really good thing. I just feel for the people that have really suffered, whether family ill, loss through COVID, or loss of job or anything. I'm blessed.
Yeah.
I mean, what we got to remember is that I'm sure all of us are in better positions than a lot of people out there. I might be moaning that I'm on furlough and I'm bored, but if someone had said to me 4 months ago or 6 months ago, right, someone's going to pay you 80% of your wages to sit at home, I can bring it on. Yeah, okay. But it's got to the point now where I think a lot of people are feeling the strain a little bit because it's gone on so long.
Yeah.
But that we've kind of got to remember that there are people out there that haven't worked and haven't been able to get any money or anything coming in.
Yeah,
so
we're
all quite fortunate.
Yeah, really, really stressful. And myself being in technology, COVID's really highlighted the lack of, there is a massive digital poverty. Over half the world's population doesn't have access to the internet. And just in
myself
the UK,
included in Hereford, because I'm deepest, darkest Hereford.
I was going to say.
No word of a lie, no word of a lie, Andrew.
Do a campaign for me. Do a campaign for me.
I'll get you some kit. Don't worry. I mean, it's literally, but it's you realise how how lucky we are and how fortunate. And yeah, as you say, furlough. You're sort of it's proactive and it's a positive that you stay at home and don't do anything, right? I mean, it's incredible. When would we have ever thought that would have been the case? But yeah, I think everyone is ready to get back, but it'll be it's totally changed. It'll be a different go back to work.
Especially in business. And I think, obviously I work in the information security sector. And obviously we talk a lot about business continuity and obviously getting those plans. And I think there's a running joke at the moment now within our sector. And it's, so who dictated your business continuity plans? The CEO, the CFO, the CISO? No, COVID. It's literally, it blows all directors out the water and go, actually, your business continuity plan, it was COVID.
Yeah, and
that's the new norm. It's literally
correct.
Getting it. I think if you take the positives away from this situation, it has shown how weak and fragile certain industries really were.
Yeah.
And I think it gives them a kick up the butt to sort it and plan for the future, because this sort of thing will happen again. There has been pandemics in the past and there will be pandemics again. However, a modern day pandemic hasn't happened, where we've got this technological advancements, where we've got employment where it's at and technology where it's at. So this has been a great thing to get that going.
Yeah.
Do you see that's going to change your outlook in your business?
Yeah, but 100%. I mean, we're lucky, being small. I tip my hat to those leaders, leadership teams, board members in, 100,000 employee company. How you have to deal with that. Incredible. Having to deal with 65 was tough enough, let alone tens of thousands of people. But I think it also just it's another smack in the face in terms of I certainly was, and I think arguably the government were as well, blasé about it.
Mm-hmm.
You say this is the first sort of major pandemic and experience that we've all had. It won't certainly be for my children now. This is kind of the new norm. But yeah, I think once we'd heard about it October, November last year, and yet we just went about our business and kept going. And I do commute into the city, and I do not miss being a sardine on the tube. Just incredible that we kept going and kept going. It's no coincidence we're right up there, aren't we, in terms of how many people have been infected. So just incredibly blasé. And now you watch the Hollywood films back in the day, and it's a huge reality. So it is the new normal. Business, life, everything. It's a new normal.
And do you think that, I know obviously, like we've touched on, business is going to be affected massively for years to come, if not forever, because of this. Excuse me. Do you see the rugby landscape changing similarly?
I think, rugby, obviously, just in general sport. I mean, I'm watching sport now. I watch the golf. I'm a big golf lover. And, you watch Dustin Johnson win at the weekend. And, I've been watching tapes of Tiger Woods, and you see the crowds, and he's fist pumping, and he's going, Dustin Johnson won, and he was just like, there's no atmosphere. There's it is like being in an office. When you've done something well, nobody pats you on the back, nobody claps or anything. Sport is changed, and even though you watch, I've been watching Premiership football. And they've got the noise going on, the sounds. It's a bit out of kilter. It's not the same. The fact, and I still see the players. I love the celebration and Yahoo and all that sort of stuff. And you see the players go off to run off, to celebrate with the fans, and then there's kind of they slow up, going, "What am I doing? Where am I going to celebrate? I'm running away from my fellow players." It's bizarre. Yes, it will change dramatically. I was very fortunate in my business, in a corporate hospitality is massive in business, but also for me and what I used to do. And there's players, ex-players, that it's their main job, quite frankly. And I used to do it just because of business contacts. And, we hosted as a company, and we had a box at Twickenham. It's just ended literally this month. So I won't be renewing. That's detrimental to the RFU. It's detrimental to rugby, because what do I like? What do you book? What's happening? No one knows. And they just cancelled. I just had an alert from the RFU, cancelled the sevens. That was going to be at Twickenham. I was thinking, it was probably last weekend. It's all a bit of a mess. It's all over the shop, and I really feel for the hospitality sector. But I feel for the players as well, because you do get so much out of an environment where there's supporters and there's noise and atmosphere. It's definitely not the same. It's not the same.
I mean, obviously, you might be able to tell from my accent, and I almost had a bet with Dom that I was going to try and not mention Gloucester tonight, but that's not going to happen.
I mean, you can't not mention Gloucester. Every podcast is done.
We need to have the.
Hang on, Dom. JK. Let me finish. Can you imagine, Andy, playing in front of an empty shed?
Oh, there we go.
Wouldn't that to me, the shed is like my holy grail. I love the shed. I absolutely love the banter in there.
Something quickly, actually.
And I just think that it would be absolutely surreal to see that.
Oh, Andy, don't egg him on, please.
Oh, please do. What is it, Tom? Don't speak so I can see what he's trying to show me. You might need to speak, Andy.
Old school ball, and they faded slightly. It's from 2004. The whole team signed it in gold all the way down.
That's amazing.
So that was a great era and period for us in Gloucester. But I agree. Look, there's so many great stadiums, but from playing in the Premiership, Kingsend was just the best. And I played against Gloucester, but then played, with, and we used to get a buzz from doing the warm up and going around. So I'd go out individually, do my kicking, and there's people there and they clap and cheer. You get the odd heckle, obviously deserve it. And, but, then you go around as a team. This is before kickoff. And I felt 10 feet, it was unreal. And, that's the benefit of home advantage, but it's also just, I think, even some of the most hostile environments, as a sportsman, you have to get up for it and you have to respect and love it. Because if you don't, it's going to kill you. I mean, you're gone, you're dead. But I mean, it just seems not fair. It's just
It's a weird one. So I've been watching the Southern Hemisphere. Obviously, they're back playing. The Super 14, fantastic. They've got the fans, and to be fair, listening to that and watching that kind of, it gets me jealous a little bit of not being able to watch it myself. But then I looked at the NRL. Obviously, I watched both codes, and the NRL have put placeholders of people.
They've done that in football as well, in some grounds.
People all around and I'm like, it's just not the same. You could literally, I think the players are going to know, and it's not going to help their mental state. So anything, it's going to make them miss the real people more.
Yeah.
Or
the old stadiums where people used to stand, right? I mean, Twickenham was like that. There were standing areas and, kind of social distancing in a stand rather than being sat down. There could be the reinvention of the old school, oval, no seats, and you hear of 100,000 people back in the day, in a sort of tiered stadium, but no seats. That could come back. You never know.
So switching on to, I mean, we haven't really touched a lot on rugby, but we'll switch on to your career. Obviously, you had an absolutely glistening career. Played for like the biggest club in the world in Gloucester and some others. You also obviously famously in the 2003 squad won the World Cup with England. Wanted to just bring it back briefly to, I know you mentioned obviously playing at Gloucester and playing against Gloucester. I imagine are very two different experiences at home. Are there any other stadiums in the Premiership that sort of came close to that, or you thought, oh Jesus God, we've got to go and play there again? Is there anywhere else that sort of hit home like that?
Well, I think everyone would, when Newcastle were in the Premiership, it was the only Northern club, and it was, a big schlep. And it was always hosing it down, windy. It's literally the old-fashioned game of two halves. And we always used to play at Christmas. I remember New Year's Eve. We had a New Year's Day one year there, and the hotel was pumping, New Year's Eve, got no sleep whatsoever, and so no one wanted to do the Newcastle kind of away, no one wanted to do it. And it's probably still the same, although it's slightly easier because they've got a plastic pitch now. But even then, back in the day, we'd stay up, so it was a good night out, right? But still. But I got to say, Leicester Tigers, Welford Road, I really enjoyed playing there. Great atmosphere, great stadium, always well. Really early on, it could be a couple of thousand people watching you if you were lucky. At Welford Road, it was always 16,000, so it felt like a mini international. And then you were playing Leicester, that was, full of internationals. It was incredibly difficult place to go and play. But when you went there and you did well, what I loved about the Leicester fans was they were really respectful. They almost applauded you for playing well and potentially looking to beating Leicester. They were always I didn't win very often there, but I that was one game I thought, yes, you've got to be on top of your game, but I want to be on top of my game to play in front of these people. So really respected for Leicester.
Obviously played for a number of different clubs. Obviously, could read down the list, but obviously started with the better teams, with Wasps, obviously. How did it all start for you? Obviously, down at schooling in Bedford. Was that where it all started to go towards Wasps, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's just life, especially in business, is about the network and about the people that you know. And it was the same for me. Growing up, sport, it's the influence of my old man, and getting to go to Bedford School, which was a traditional rugby school, was massive for me. And it was, I was lucky I was in a team. So there was, I think, 3 England players at under 16 level in my team, and I didn't get in. I wasn't good enough. And we went unbeaten pretty much all the way through my school years, 5 years unbeaten. The centres were taller than the second rows. We just had a freak year group of, I was always the smallest by a mile, but we just had a freak year. And so they kind of inspired me as well to be better than I was and to keep growing. And I was young for my year group as well. So, July birthday. So I was quite young and physically, small as well. So it was just amazing experience to play in a team that never really lost. And so, the likes of playing Harrow School, Roger Utley was the coach, a Wasp player, and he kind of saw me and, put the word out. And then my local club, which my dad, it's sort of through the veins for me, rugby, that my dad started Bicester Rugby Club. We turned up there. One of my dad's companies started there, and there was no mini rugby on a Sunday. So we all turned up and there was no one there. So 3 dads started it up, and we recruited literally in the streets, just picking up kids going, come on, let's go and play rugby. And, now there's 350, 400 kids that turn up. So Bicester had a coach that was coaching at Wasps as well. And it just all kind of started for me there. And then I got to tell you this story. So I kept getting denied at not a county, but at divisional level and then England trials. And my last year, they made me captain. So it was incredible to get that. They just saw me as, tenacious and just wouldn't give up. Who's this guy that just will not give up? And so I then, it was easy then to sort of go and have trials at Wasps and whatever. And then as I was leaving school, I got invited before that, I played Llanelli under 21s. This is before that, and so I was used to winning. And there was a guy number 8 for Llanelli on the under 20s. So I was 18, so I mean it was just another physical step up. And there was a guy called Scott Quinnell at number 8.
It's a little low.
Never heard of him.
There's my most embarrassing moment, which we'll go into later, involves Scott. But he scored. He was having a trial game to play for the first team, so he's a couple of years older than me, and he scored 4 tries before half time against them. And they won. Llanelli 21s at Wasps won 76-12 or something ridiculous, right? So I was like, wow. Anyway, went on tour with Wasps 21s to Canada, that big rugby nation. And your game hadn't gone professional. This is 1993. So I'm on a WhatsApp group with all those guys, which is amazing through this COVID period. And I got arrested the first night because I was 18. The drinking law is 19. And so I got arrested the first night. We went to a nightclub. And I walked out of the nightclub straight in the police car. And off I go. And one of the lads was like, oh, shit. So went in to tell the lads. And we went around the block. And I'm going, you know, no mobile phone, right? So I'm going, this is it. I've let my family down, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's pretty steaming. And anyway, this police car kept going around. I was about to sort of say something, and they came past the club again. And the whole of the Wasps team were there. They were all lined up, clapping me in, singing happy birthday. They stitched me up. So they even though I was underage, they just had a word with the police and say, just arrest this kid, you know. And I absolutely cacked myself. And at that moment, I knew, Christ, this is the club for me. What, you know, good lads. And the club, even then, and we're talking about it now, the club was always about the people. It wasn't about the place, the stadium, the fans. It really was about the people in the club. It's a unique club. And so I had 6 amazing years at Wasps, and it turned amateur to professional. Rob Andrew was there. Some legends.
Was Peter Bracken there?
Say again?
Was Peter Bracken there at the time you were there?
No, he wasn't. No. So I came across Pete at Quinn's when I was there. But my point being that I was 6 years, and Wasps was going to be my only club. I mean, genuinely, I wanted to be a one-club player. Absolutely loved it. All the players who are now still my mates, we grew up together. They recruited. What they did really well is they recruited. So literally, they went to the England trials, divisionals, and there was 4 teams, and they just watched and they went, we'll have him, we'll have him, we'll have him, we'll have him. And they just picked a team from there, which you think in hindsight, it's an obvious thing to do, but there was no kind of recruitment. There was no kind of, and we just had an unbelievable team. So in 96-7, we won the league, won the cup, and it was all just starting professional. And I that was it. I was going to stay forever. And professional rugby, you know, we're so blessed to be able to do it, but the truth of the matter was it wasn't professional, and we had as good time off it. But on the field, I knew I needed to get to another level. I played for England. I'd got dropped pretty much in my first season because I wasn't right mentally. I wasn't right physically. And I wanted to go to another level. Like, you see the athletes train, and I had experience of that. And we were nowhere near it. I mean, in 1996, we played Middlesex Sevens. We played Wigan in the final. Right, and we were winning at half time because it was our game, right? It was our code. They never played Sevens, right? But you think of the 10 that played for Wigan. I mean, they're all heroes. They're all legends of rugby league, and some of them played Union. Andy Farrell, Gomarsall. I mean, the list goes on. Gary Connolly, Henry Paul, Sean Edwards, Martin I mean, it's in Scott was playing Quinnell. Insane team, and we were just sort of students. Lawrence was playing, Pete Scrivener, myself, Nick Greenstock. We had a good team, right? But the problem it was amateur, and it was 10 minutes in the final. And we were like, Christ, we were struggling with 7 minutes, and it was 10 minutes. We're winning at half time, and then we get absolutely trounced. Couldn't get near them. We lost by 50 points, you know. But that was a massive realization to me. I was like, got a long way to go, and I wanted to invest in my own sort of fitness, and the club didn't back me, you know, and I was gutted. And so it basically came to the fact that it's either you, Andy, or I've got to get rid of the fitness coach kind of thing. It got to that point. And Nigel Melville chose to keep the fitness coach and get rid of me. So I was absolutely mortified and gutted. And it wasn't an arrogance by me to go, you know, you don't get rid of a player. It was a big realization in my life, but that started the merry-go-round of going to different clubs. I would never have done it, but you know, it's not a regret. It's nothing. It's just a fact of life. And I'm sort of blessed and lucky that I got to play for so many other great clubs. But the truth of the matter was, I would have definitely stayed at Wasps all my life.
No,
so obviously, after Wasps, you went on to captain Bedford.
Yeah.
Obviously, in the relegation year, was it walk-in and captain, or what was the concept?
Oh, it was great. I mean, listen, I got so in the Clive Woodward era. So I played for England. Jack Rowell.
Yep.
Then Jack went. Will Carling kind of went. You know, Jeremy Guscott went. You know, it was this era of just all these legends that I grew up watching and then playing with gone. And suddenly, you know, I lose my place, you know, my contract at Wasps, and I go to Bedford, and so I just wanted to play and enjoy it, and I was playing for a club that obviously, you know, my boarding house was literally around the corner, so I used to look at the stadium, so it sort of brought my passion back for it, and you know, proper old school rugby club, and it was great, and I was playing for a coach as well that I hugely respected, a guy called Paul Turner. And this guy just, in terms of the game, there's not many people I could say that think or love the game more than this guy. And it's infectious. I mean, literally sleep, breathe, walk, talk, rugby. And not only that, when he was a player, if you ever watch Paul Turner, go and Google what he used to do. Kicked off both foot, place kicked off both foot, would do chips off his knee over the defensive line. Grubbers, you know, you saw Finn Russell do that grubber through the nutmeg legs, and he did that for fun all the time. So it was inspiring. So I went there just going, I'm going to learn all I can off this guy. And you know, at the end of the day, we were the least funded, you know, coming up Premiership. It was tricky, right? And actually, through it, we didn't get paid a couple of months, you know, all that sort of stuff. So it's proper old school. And unfortunately, you know, we got relegated. I was injured in the playoff games. I bust my knee. But that season, I showed responsibility, captaincy, and I goal kicked as well. And I don't think I was flavour with Clive Woodward at the time. And he just saw that and he went, bang. There was an injury. I think Kieran was injured. Dorse was playing. It was 2000. And I sat on the bench playing for Bedford, you know, in the Six Nations. So I was really, really lucky. And he got me in. And I would have gone on the tour to South Africa, but I bust my knee at the end of the season. But I played against Gloucester. And at Bedford, I remember it to this day. John Fiddler and Philippe Saint-André came up to me and said, "We really want to sign you for next season." And you know, I didn't know Bedford were going to get relegated. I only had a year's contract, and I was like, "Bring it on!" I went down to see John Fiddler, met him at the Air Balloon.
A lovely pub that is, yeah.
Remember it. And you know, Philippe was a hero as well of mine. You know, watching him play, and you know, another inspiring character. And that was an easy decision. You know, once I turned up, and I've got to tell you this story. So I turned up, and they were all like, "Who's this London, you know, swear word? Who's this London idiot?" And they'd heard about me, blah blah blah. So I turned up, and I thought, what do I wear? You know, it's professional sport, so wear a suit, obviously. Yeah. No one in Gloucester at the time had a suit, I don't think, in terms of the players.
There were not even any shops, were there?
In terms of the players that didn't have a suit. And so I wore a suit, and they said, right, we need a photo on the pitch, so get changed. So I literally got changed, left my suit in the thing, and when I got back, the suit had gone and my pants were sellotaped to the ceiling. They were like, and by the way, the ceiling in the King's Own change room at the time was so like, it was 20 feet high. There was no way of me getting them down. That was Mark Cornwall, who's a good mate from back in the day, second row. Yeah. And they just wanted to teach me a lesson. You know, this is the club you're coming to. There's no stars in this team. You're going to get treated, and you know, you better turn up with the right attitude. You know, and I loved it. It was brilliant. And they hid my car as well, by the way, in Tesco's. So I had to sort of say, look, I am going to call the police. You just, where is my car? That was Toddy. So yeah, good days.
Awesome. In terms of, obviously you played against a lot of clubs which we've touched on. You played for a few clubs against many, if not all of the teams in the Premiership at one point. Who would you say was your rugby nemesis in terms of a player? Who did you not like seeing on the pitch opposite you? It may have been that you respected them massively, but you just, you know, always butted heads. I mean, was there anyone that you relished playing against, or didn't look forward to in either way?
I think it's easy to pick out a few people because, you know, to compliment them, they were so competitive and, you know, is a 9. You know, we're all trying to chip away and chirp away. I used to really love playing Pete Richards, for instance, who's very physical, great player. Loved playing against him. Challenged me physically, and you had to keep an eye on him all the time. Brilliant player. Obviously, Brax, Kieran, superb player. You know, and we with Matt as well, Matt Dawson, we fought, you know, for our whole careers. I was the younger one coming through, so I was 2 or 3 years younger than those old boys. But you know, that was always coming up against them. I had to apologise to Dawes as well for clipping him with my boot in the head one game because he frustrated the life out of me. He was, you know, playing so well. And you know, those players, but I think there's you know, number 8s as well that were always difficult because they just take a beeline for you. Dean Ryan, when I played against him at Newcastle, I never forget, stood behind the ruck, marshalling the troops, and he just came through the middle, swinging arm, just cut my eyelid open, just swinging arm. Yeah, these are players. You know, there's a difference between playing against a scrum half, you know, you're challenged mentally about, versus playing against a big brute that's going to, you know, come after you and try and kill you. There's plenty of those guys, but you know, I learned a lot off players that, you know, maybe weren't as skillful as I was, but had bigger hearts and bigger engines, and you know, just were at it all day. So you kind of try and take the best out of certain competitors and people and try and raise your game in different circumstances, different games. And, you know, these were also people telling me these facts that, you know, if you want to be the best, you want to be a great player. Why did you I remember Dean Ryan giving me the advice. He said, you know, every day of the week, I would pick Gary Armstrong over you. And I said, why? And he said, because he's not as skillful as you. He doesn't kick or pass as well as you, but my goodness me, he is committed. He tackles like a back row forward, and he's into the forwards the whole time. Tenacious. He climbs into people. I was like, done. Thank you. Best advice ever. You know. So, you know, and there's other greats of the game, you know, that you just couldn't lay a hand on. Carlos Spencer, you know, just couldn't lay a hand on him.
Unbelievable.
New Zealand Barbarians, you know, we played against them. We did really well. I made a couple of mistakes in '97 against them, missed the kick in touch, you know, Jonah Lomu, you know, suddenly, you know, Carlos Spencer sidestep. You just couldn't play, just Christian Cullen, you know, these guys are like, they just glide, absolutely glide. So I used to love playing Southern Hemisphere teams, you know, the way that they played. Our game was a bit more forward orientated compared to their backs. And then, you know, latterly, George Gregan, you know, this guy was insane as a player. a leader. And what I took from him was, we beat him in 03, and I was fortunate to be on the pitch when we beat them in 07 in the quarterfinal in Marseille. This guy never looked beaten. He never was beaten. Whether it's the final whistle, he just didn't. I actually apologised to him after 2007. I said, "Sorry, mate. We beat you," sort of thing. I apologised to him. I had so much respect for what he did and who he was and how he carried himself. So, yeah, there's tons of guys. Yus van der West. I mean, the list goes on, right? I mean, they're so fortunate to play against these greats.
Do you find that just out of curiosity, you mentioned obviously these great players you're playing against. Now, going back to your playing days, would you tailor how you played with which opponent you're playing? For example, like, if you knew you were playing against, one of the best nines in the world, would you change your game specifically for that match only, or would you kind of? Yeah,
I mean, video analysis was huge, but I was particular. With England, we used to talk about sacking the 9. So the more times we got him on the ground, and 10. But the more times we did, the harder it was for them to play make. So we should have been in the ascendancy in that regard in terms of defensive duties. But, some forwards, you used to see them. They can't get away with it now. But, I always remember a couple of the forwards used to just get the 9 and just lie on them. And it's so frustrating because you want to kick out, you want to punch or whatever, but then the touch judge comes in because you've reacted to it. But you're thinking, this 120 kilo unit is lying on me and I've got a job to do and he's not allowing. It's called cheating and you're not seeing it. It was brutal. So, yes, I looked at the game and I would look how people played and I would choose how I defended. Latterly, as you build relationships, Nigel Melville was a great help. Dave Ellis is a guy that was the French defensive coach for Gloucester as well. We used to tactically look at it. You look at Gareth Davis in the World Cup. I mean, this guy, right, defensively, he would look at it and he was allowed. I'm not sure I was allowed to do this, but he got interceptions because he would just go at the 10 and then he'd know that the defensive behind him was solid and he'd just go for intercepts. I mean, incredible. And it worked. Yeah. He picked a pass off the Australian number 9, I think. He literally took a pass, stepped past. Gareth Davis is gone. I mean, so yes, you look at that. I looked at Elisard in the World Cup semi-final against France. Every time he touched the ball, I wanted to get hold of him and snag him. Same with George in 2007 in Marseille, trying to get to them. I'll never forget tapping. So Just, I played against Just. I think it was Northern Transvaal played against a divisional team early on, and I knew how good this guy was. I mean, incredible, physical presence around the breakdown. And but I knew at the scrum that he didn't have a left-hand pass back in the day, and he used to pick and pass. Good pass, but I knew I could tap him. Anyway, I tapped him at this once. It was at Bristol. I remember at the Memorial Stadium. I tapped him and the ball bobbled to the fly half and we got the ball back, whatever. And I remember thinking, and he's got these, used to have these snake eyes and they were like evil. If he stared at you, you're like, oh my God, I'm in trouble, right? And he stared at me and I thought, and I apologized again to him. I'm really sorry about that. It's just, what an idiot, posh public school boy. I'm so sorry about that. Yes, in answer to your question, absolutely 100%. You play. So Dorse, whenever I used to play Dorse, I used to know, just mark him out. I didn't want him to, because we were competing at England level, I didn't want him to have a good game. So I would literally, as soon as he did a step right foot, bang, I'm there to hit him. Whether I did or not is not the point, but that was the challenge, because he was that good. He would duck under, slip through, but that was what I wanted to do.
So before we move on to obviously England World Cup, that's obviously going to be a nice conversation we have. Obviously, sticking with the Gloucester theme.
Yeah.
A little bit of controversy has hit out recently in the recent news with their new coach in Skivington.
Yeah. Irish. No controversy there. They did everything above board, I promise you. Everything's fine.
What's obviously you thought that Skivington coming in, do you think going to make a good impact? And obviously likewise, this whole London Irish controversy behind it. What's your take on?
Well, firstly, yeah, I mean, it's a good question. Firstly, I'm not close to it. We've congratulated George to the WhatsApp group that we're on. I think it's a fantastic appointment signing. I think he really will do well. I think it'd be great. He's young. I think it's going to be hard. I really do.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're young, and it doesn't matter whether you've exited the game, and there's still players that probably are playing now that you played with, kind of thing. It's always difficult. I'm sure he won't suffer for that, but yeah, difficult job. There's no hiding place at Gloucester in terms of coaching, how the team plays. You've got if they could squeeze 16,000 into Kingsholm, you've got 16,000 people that want to criticise. Positive or negative, doesn't matter. They want their team to win, and that's fair enough. So I think it's going to be difficult for him, but I think it's a great appointment. Young, upcoming English coach, all for it. The whole thing with London Irish and Gloucester, I still can't believe in this day and age, communication, how we do it, the rules. Really? We're talking about this? Really? That they didn't communicate that, I'm like, it's either because the press want a story, but the whole statement from Gloucester, London Irish, London Irish are not going to be happy, are they? They're going to come out and say, within the laws, really, we're discussing that. It should be very, very succinct, the laws, in terms of you can't approach them, whatever. But to have this is a nonsense, because it's going to be hard for George. It's going to be, what are the commentators? Nothing's going to happen. It won't be a problem. But yeah, just complete nonsense. I'm appalled by the sort of unprofessional, kind of light that's come about.
Do you think that's quite sort of, obviously, a bit of a different situation with the pandemic, but obviously today, Northampton re-signing or sorting out contracts with 19 players, some players missing out, obviously, due to the situation with the pandemic. Do you think that's all seems a bit rushed through? There's talk of 5 stars from Leicester who are sort of saying, no, we're not going to have a pay cut, and supposedly by the end of today that will be stood down. Do you think that's just being rushed, or?
No, I think it's the reality. I think if you look at it from a positive point of view for the clubs, they're going to have to look at how they're going to finance, and look at, you might have lost sponsors. There's a lot of connotations around it.
Yeah.
They certainly a club like Leicester, thrive off and are profitable because people come through the gates and they spend money. If that's not going to be the case, it's catastrophic in terms of the business and the money's coming in. So how is it supposed to survive without the union, the Premier Rugby, or blah blah blah? Funding the players. It's an obvious thing, and for a club perspective, it's a good opportunity to kind of wipe the slate clean as well. You're seeing decisions made quickly, really looking at the strategy. I was shocked by Gloucester because obviously they had a clear out, recruitment, David Humphrey's recruitment. And I'm going, oh my God, that's massive changes. One of the challenges for George is, you come into a club, you haven't signed these players, but you like these, really difficult. But COVID, what it will do is it'll just get rid of all of that and actually look at it. And it's the reality for some of the players, and I feel massively sorry for some of them. I've seen posts from some of the players as well, sort of saying, look, I don't know whether this is the end, but it's probably likely to be. Seeing lots of players go to Japan. It's tough, but it's the reality of sport. And we used to joke we're a piece of meat. It's still the same. There's no difference really.
Do you see that this is going to be scope for a bigger intervention? Obviously, mental health is going to play a huge part in everything that's going on, and a little bit more intervention from the RPA and the growth of the RPA, who have been instrumental on keeping tabs with these players, knowing the situation, obviously the mental health that comes with going from full-time rugby to absolutely nothing, furloughed. I think if you look at other code of sport, obviously with rugby league, you've got players who've had to go out and find another job essentially just to put food on the table. Obviously, these are players at the top of their game. Do you see this is going to now be a kick up the arse for the RPA to now grow and become a bigger put another bigger stamp in the Premiership game and the Championship if they can?
Yeah, I mean, but it's not just the RPA. I mean, the RPA, is dependent on funds. What I respect about the RPA is they've set up so many things to support the players, but it's twofold as well, right? So the players have got to come forward, they've got to support, but also they've got to reach out. And I certainly reached out when I was as a player, when I had incidents in my career, and they were there straight away for me. But you have to do that. I think the RPA get a bad rap sometimes, and it's unfair. You know, all they're trying to do is they're there for the players. And yes, we can always do more, right? And I was really proud to be part of a WAS Legends group that we, through the WhatsApp group, we send videos to one another different weekends, saluting various people in the world, celebrating birthdays, all this stuff. We raised 25 grand doing it, right? And all became alcoholics. And it was great fun. It was something like 6,000 messages, videos. I mean, it was incredible how it brought us all together. But we donated some to the funds to the RPA for, you know, the helplines that were struggling to keep going because, you know, the guys need it. So I think, you know, the RPA needs help. The RPA are always there to help the players. I don't think they need to kick up the arse. I think they want to do more, right? But it needs some really, really potential shifts in resource and support financially. So but that can only happen with, unfortunately, with money. But I think the intent is there. But the players, you know, this is a massive kick and reality. And sometimes it is cruel because it's kind of taken out of their hands a little bit as well, which is really, really brutal. But it's a global game. You can go and have different experiences. I don't have a regret, but I wished I played abroad. You know, yes, I toured, but I wish I played for a French club or an Italian club, or you know, had the chance to go to Japan and never did. So there's good opportunities for some of the players there. You know,
we've just seen Chris Robshaw going off to the US.
Yeah, exactly. That was never an option. Yeah, that
obviously America's becoming a big thing for it.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, what a great experience that will be for him, and you never know. You absolutely never know. Yeah, the US has always been dangerous if they get the funding right. Just some of the so-called rejects from, you know, American football.
Yeah, they'd be scary.
In the sevens. Oh my God. Incredible talent. So they could be really, really dangerous. And great experience, right? So go around the world and try it. So we'll see. But I know that it's going to be a bit of suck it and see. It's very dangerous, but it'll be a shame once it gets going that there'll be no supporters there, because they're a massive part of this.
Yeah,
I think so. Traveling around the world kind of leads quite nicely on to. I'm going to hazard a guess, a massive highlight in your career. Obviously playing for country and winning the illustrious World Cup in 2003. Obviously, talk us through. We'll go 2003 first, and obviously 2007.
Hang on, the illustrious World Cup. I thought it was the WebLS World Cup.
That's the. I can all but apologise for it. But so 2003.
I'm actually going to edit that
out. So 2003 World Cup. You guys are getting there. How was the feeling? Obviously, getting into that final. Obviously, we'll go from quarterfinals onwards. Was it a case of we can do this, we can do this, we can do this? Or was it, we've got to play this game, we've got to play this game, and then we've got to play this game? Which, was it in your mind, or did you really have to concentrate on the task at hand?
No, when we toured before the World Cup, we toured New Zealand and Australia, and we won across there, and we did really well. The belief was, when we turned out, the belief was there anyway. I mean, we had an unbelievably strong squad, but also we had an experienced squad, an experienced squad in age, maturity, mentality, and a squad that hadn't won anything, So yeah, you'd won domestic trophies, and there's at that time in that England era was very much Leicester Wasps and then kind of other people. So those two clubs were going hammer and tong at one another, and also massively successful and big personalities. But the belief was always there actually when we landed. It doesn't mean to say you're nervous and you don't doubt and all those kind of things. And the bounce of a ball can change everything. But the belief was always there. We kind of knew that if we got through our group, you're never sure who you're going to play in a quarterfinal, but the route was easier. There was always a route to. It seems weird now, but there was always, back in that era, there was the route to avoid New Zealand.
Yeah.
Right? So, yes, New Zealand, in 2007, you saw what happened to them in the quarterfinal, but it felt more achievable and believable to have an easier route. Yes, you might meet them in the final, but that therefore the belief was strong and good. But even then, didn't matter. We were going to play New Zealand because we'd gone over to Wellington and beaten them. So the belief was strong, and it was. But confidence is another thing. So you can believe all this stuff, and then it's kind of the confidence running. And of course, the World Cup didn't go according to plan, even though. But I think the confidence grew and the belief grew when we beat South Africa. So we played Georgia first, but when we beat South Africa, and we convincingly so beat South Africa, I think then we kind of knew, get to the final, and then it's all on. And we should, no matter what the conditions, we should get a stranglehold on this and win the World Cup. Doesn't mean to say you're going to do it. And obviously, Wales quarter final, losing at half time, big spanner in the works.
Going back to last year's World Cup, what do you think the issue was? Do you think England's final was against New Zealand, and then they kind of felt like they'd won it already?
No, I think it was
South Africa.
Having lost the World Cup final against South Africa, you need to be very clear on how you're going to win that game and the tactics.
Yeah.
And from the off against South Africa, the tactics were totally wrong, and decisions were being made on the pitch in a really, listen, pressure is a different game. I've been in those finals, and pressure, you never know. You think you're going to deal with it, you never know. And mistakes happen, and we let South Africa get confidence and chipped away at sort of lead. And when they do that, physical, big, strong, their defence is so superior. We just got it wrong. End of story. It wasn't because, was there a belief that England, because they dominated and played so well against New Zealand, and actually New Zealand in the pool game kind of did that to South Africa, this is going to be pretty straightforward and easy. I don't think they did. I don't think they would have done. I just think South Africa got it right and we got it wrong. As simple as in the final. And then by the end, they made it look easy, which was the worst thing, So, but in sort of the sort of positive connotations from a shocking loss in the final was, I've never seen an England team take apart a New Zealand team like that ever. I mean, that was absolutely astonishing. So
that'll be that was grandkids. Sorry,
but I wish that was the final.
Yeah, they'll be saying, "Where were you? Did you watch the? It'll be like the JFK. Where were you when JFK did?"
I know.
Fascinating. It's unbelievable.
But the painful thing and the reality of life is that nobody really watches the replays of a semi-final. They just don't.
I will.
Well, funnily enough, I actually watched the 2003 World Cup final back the other day in preparation for you coming on. I thought I'd get a bit of ammunition. But it's to me, 2003 still only seems a couple of years ago. But I watched that back, and even the quality of the footage was so dated. It was just like, oh my god,
astonishing.
It's now 2020. I think 2003 was yesterday.
Yeah, but 2003, I mean, being in tech, the iPhone still didn't come out for another 4 years.
Yeah, that's true.
It's
mad.
Going to the 2003 World Cup final, you're drawing it full time. What's the conversation that's happening within that huddle? What's being said at that time? Because it's quite unprecedented, and obviously tiredness is setting in. There's a chance of there's still going to be drawing after the extra time. What conversations is happening? Obviously, I know Johnny's probably sat there giving his speeches and everything, saying, "I'm going to win this." But
no, he wasn't like that. I mean, it's so process driven. It's so process driven. You cliche to the cows come home, but under the biggest pressure, and you're nervous, and you're also long tournament. You're exhausted as well. You know, some of those players, how they delivered that level all the way through at the end of a long tournament. I think because we had a strong squad as well, that some of the guys got rested through. They were an age that they needed that helped as well. But you know, Lawrence played every minute of every game. You know, and just to be able to put in that level of performance was astonishing, and credit to the fitness team for England at the time. We prided ourselves on being the fittest as well. We didn't want to lose a game on fitness. So I mean, it's all process stuff. It's all, tactics, but it's all process stuff, and it's calming when it's like that. Rather than worrying about a result, worrying about an outcome, it's just process. Do this, and it will work. And the last play of the game when we got the drop goal was exactly that. We drilled that all day long, and I used to stay behind with Wilco. So in the clip, you might not have seen it, but I literally whacked Woody on the back of the on the shoulder. So it was the last line out, and I whacked him on the shoulder. And all the cameras are on him, right? Because he's he's nervous, because he's in control because he knows what the players are going to do. But him being an ex-England player would rather be out there doing it. So it's nerve-wracking in that regard. And I just slapped him on the shoulder, and he just looked at me like a scared rabbit. It was like, oh my God, like you just hit me. And I just said to him, I think this is the belief through the whole team and the squad was, we got this. I said that literally before Tomo threw that line out to the back to Mudos. I said I knew it. And one of the reasons was, you didn't know that was going to be a top of the dart throw. Dorse, I think at the next ruck does the dummy and gets the line incredible, as only Dorse would do and can do. It gets us close. But I used to literally, I was kind of number 3 in the pecking order. So I would have to do all the training harder, longer, because when you're playing, you need a bit more rest. So Wilco didn't do that. He trained as hard as he was the hardest trainer. So I used to stay behind with Wilco. My arms were absolutely dead, but 100 passes to Wilco, and he just left foot, right foot, and he'd just get them through the post. So my belief was obvious, not that Jono would have seen that. Jono believed in him, and all the players believed in him. But I was kind of felt like I was the one that had done some of the hard yards with him, and loads of other people, don't get me wrong. But my personal experience was, it doesn't matter even, who passed the ball, because I think Jono tried, Neil Back did, and everyone was like, no, don't do it, let Dorse do it. And once it happened, I kind of knew he would get it over. But also, I didn't, there's that, I knew he'd get it over, but I didn't think he'd do it with his weak foot. He did it with his right foot.
Well, that was part.
Hadn't he? Oh, he missed a couple off his left before, hadn't he?
Yeah, well, maybe that's the reason he did it.
Yeah.
Well, he missed almost every kick that game. It's like the conversions and things, but when it comes down to a couple of penalties, I watched it back the other day, and what I wanted to touch on as well, the difference in characters of the managers. So the moment the full-time whistle went, Eddie Jones was down on the sideline, giving his players tips, giving his players support, whereas Clive stayed up in the stands. Now, does that show the difference in managing styles? Is
Not really. I think Clive wanted to, but I think it was a moment where John has said, "We got this. We're in control. Thanks. We don't need." And those two had that relationship anyway, I think, and trust. Yeah, I mean, all of it. But fair play to Woody. To get sort of denied by the skipper, you just got to go, I've done my job, right? I've done my job, and these guys know what they're doing. And fair play to that, because if I was a coach and whatever, I'd be like, oh, Christ, I really want to say what I need to say, and so fair play at the highest, most biggest pressure. But
it's the same as in training. You literally, your coach does your first hour or first 45 minutes, and then he'll do your coach's run through. But the last thing he says is, captain's run through, your pitch, your team, do what you want. It's the same in the game. He has his moment in the changing rooms. He'll have his moment while you're warming up. Moment that. As soon as the whistle goes, it's the captain's. Yeah, and I think that's the different styles. Eddie, I think he's got to get used to the leaving it to them. And I think, and obviously he does his way, and he's done wonders for the modern England team. But I think that's where Clive kind of takes it to a whole different level. At that point, it was literally, we'll do what we do in training, essentially.
I think it's
in training, you're mine for 45 minutes. You're the captains for 15. In the game, you're mine for the first hour. You're the captains for the next 80.
Yeah, I think it's the evolution and experience of you as a coach, but also the group of players that you have. You might feel sometimes with this group of players I need to, and this group of players I don't. I mean, I always felt as a player, yes, I'd listen to the coach and I'd again, look at their game plan, whatever, and I'd try and go and do it and whatever. But I'm the guy on the pitch that's making decisions. I was never the player looking up at the stands going, what do I do now? It's like, this is my game. This is where I feel I can influence the game. This is the tactic. And I'm going to change it, whatever. I got dropped for one game because Clive sent a message on, and I took it in, but I didn't spread the message. And he dropped me. I remember him dropping me for it, because I didn't spread that communication. It was one of my jobs. But at club level, I certainly felt, I'm running the show here, and it got me into trouble. Right, I had certain coaches that didn't like it. They I got sacked. I got dropped because the coach was trying to influence and whatever. And I'm like, well, you're not the guy playing the game. I'm playing the game, and you're trusting and paying me to deliver that. So I'm going to deliver it, whether I'm right, wrong. I'm the guy doing it.
You stand by your sort of thing.
Completely.
Yeah.
So winning that game, the emotions must have been there. I know you can probably see behind Dom, he's got it quite nicely framed at the back there. He did actually go looking for you at one point to see you. Yes, you are there. I
got that as a little memento, because that's the World Cup final in 2003 was my 6th birthday.
Wow, that's scary.
Now we're all feeling old.
So obviously, how big was the piss up afterwards?
Huge. It kept going. It was utter relief in so many ways. But I was pretty philosophical at the time. I was kind of like, wow, this genuinely will change our lives forever. That's what I felt immediately. Relief, great, celebration. But it was the end of a long journey and tournament and everything. You're miles away from everyone else. The Australians aren't celebrating, right? It's not a great place to go and celebrate because they've just lost a World Cup final. Yeah. And it was so late as well, because of extra time. By the time we got out, it was like 2-3 in the morning. So everyone's shattered, but we still hit it hard. And
I was gonna say, did you do it under?
Yeah, I got put in taxi and taken home, and smoking cigars. I don't smoke. I was smoking cigars, inhaling. I mean, you don't inhale cigar. That was the lesson I learned from that evening. And so I was royally ill on that. But just, the next day waking up, straight back on it. I think Tins and Bolsh came back in a police car. They were late back to the meeting. Yeah, it was classic. But they were just getting a lift, but everyone thought they'd been arrested. And, just brilliant. Oh, just wonderful. And I got to, a couple of my friends out there that, I got them into the hotel. They got to lift the Webb Ellis trophy, and I played, I was on one of the guys, I was on an under-21 tour. He lived out there with Worcester, Canada, so I got to, experience, not just with the players in the group, but also friends that I played junior rugby with, and I got them to. It was just what a privilege, amazing. And then we just absolutely, royally got smashed, and enjoyed it, loved it. It got a bit heated on occasion with some of the Aussie players, but I was way too drunk and loving. And
who out of that England squad is the best on the lash?
Well, Leonard easily, and that was the thing. So Jason Leonard, he's one of my heroes and a great friend. It felt like sometimes you were still at school in terms of your travel. You were booked in alphabetical order, so just like you would be at school. So what you don't want after 2 days solidly on the beers, me having smoked a cigar, and all I could taste is cigar, and it was you do not want a surname that starts with L, right? Because you've got 24 hours on a flight with the biggest drinker in the England, Jason Leonard. So my roomie for a lot of the time was Josh Lucy. Josh is sat next to Josh. Can drink, but
we've heard he's a bit of a hyperactive bunny.
Yeah. So Jace would have just knocked him out and put some sense into him and said, right, start drinking. So what we did on this flight, Josh was my roomie for the camps and a long period of time, and Wasp mate, he just came to me and said, I've got 24 hours with Leonard, sat next to him, and he's already started. The flight hasn't taken off. I can't drink another sip of alcohol. I'm dying. I just want to, just curl up and go to sleep. And the trophy's being passed around and everyone's celebrating. It's, and British Airways had called it Sweet Chariot, the play. I mean, it was just off the scale, right? It was so good. Mm-hmm. And so I said to Josh, I said, look, best thing we can do is, some of the games, the doc would come around before the games, you were nervous and he would give you a sleeping tablet. So sometimes you needed it, sometimes you didn't. I always took one just in case, took one off him just in case, but I had a stash. So we crushed up about 3 or 4 sleeping tablets, right? Josh and I crushed them up. And then we got 3 gin and tonics, and we stirred in these 3 or 4 sleeping tablets. Crushed him up into Leonard's. He still doesn't know this by the way.
You drugged Leonard.
So we drugged him, right? We drugged him.
You drugged Leonard.
Yeah, we drugged him. So we stirred it in. And then Josh went to the seat, and I came along, and I said, Leonard, Jace, what? It's been a brilliant trip. Just want to, down a gin and tonic with you. And he was like, no worries, lads. Ching, bosh, down it goes like that. He stayed awake for 23 hours drinking, right? Yes. It didn't work. And
I was going to say you need more like horse tranquilizers with that bloke.
We didn't have any of those. And literally, but when honestly, when the last hour he hit the floor, I mean, we lost 10,000 feet. When he went down. So that was a long flight home, but just again turned up. There was 17,000 people at Terminal 3 when we turned up, right? And then bus tour, parade, 10 Downing Street, Buckingham Palace, insane, absolutely insane.
I have to say, Jason Leonard is what I would call, well, you don't get him anymore, but one of the last breed of old school player who can play professionally but still have the biggest beer belly in the world. And all these lads are holding on to it. Now you don't even see that at all. I mean, props can run just as fast as backs in all sorts. It's great to see him sort of be part of the squad that lifts the trophy as well. Considering how long he'd been playing, for. And
we used to go out for a cheeky midweek under the radar drink in London. When he was at Quins, we were at Wasps. And we'd come to England training, and he'd sort of make a beeline for you. You go, oh no, because different eras and etc. I was like, I don't want to. He put his arm around you, and you go, right, Jason. You go, yeah. He goes, I know where you drank on Wednesday night like that. He just know. He knew all the landlords of every pub, and they go, oh, Andy Gomarsall, so and so was in here. And he'd always know, right? He'd always know. And he goes, look, you better have a good game at the weekend, or I'm going to tell the coach. It's just.
Brilliant.
So we could quite easily go through a lot more stories, but I think coming to the end. So Mr. Scenario Neil
Yeah, I've got a
Cheers,
couple of
Steve.
questions today.
Can I
So
just
there's-
apologise in advance for this, Andy?
Well, I started off doing sort of like tame questions, and then people. So I can't remember who it was, but someone told me they weren't weird enough. So I thought I better go back to the drawing board. But
Yeah.
the first one, right now, the trick is I'm going to give you certain scenarios. You need to just try and answer them as quick as possible, so we can get a nice, honest answer of you. But the first one we've been asking a lot of our guests is a lockdown-based question. So you're on lockdown with a player you used to play with, right? You're literally on lockdown for 2 weeks. You can't leave the house. It's only like a 2-bedroom sort of bungalow. You're having food and everything brought to you. Who, out of anyone that you've ever played with, would make it an absolute living hell? Who couldn't you? Who is that? Sorry,
Austin Healy.
Oh, brilliant!
Oh.
And why?
Well, we drive each other out the wall, but he would certainly drive me out the wall.
Brilliant. Excellent. Now, the other question is a little bit weirder. It starts getting slightly weirder as it goes on. Now, you wake up in a dark room. The freaky little thing from Saw cycles in, asks you if you want to play a game. The lights go on, and there's 5 bottles of Jägermeister on the table, 20 pints of Guinness, and 20 pints of lager. Now, you've got to pick 2 people to help you get through it within an hour. I pretty much know who one of them's going to be.
Yeah.
Who would you pick to help you get through that lot?
There's on our WhatsApp group, there's a gentleman called Nick Barber who played in the WAS 21s. This guy can down a pint in 2 seconds flat. I mean, insane. And
Nice.
yeah, so he'd make it easily. I can send you the video. He's a very, very talented man.
Yeah,
Please do.
Got it. So Jason Leonard and Nick Barber. There you go.
Awesome. We'll have to have a look at that. Right, and I've got a last one. It's a would you rather. It's a work in progress. It's probably not the best question in the world, but right, you've got 2 options. So you can either start your career again, right, but you have to play prop for your entire career, right, or you go back to the peak of your fitness. You can play 1 more season, but it's for a team that you absolutely hate.
Yeah, that's easy for me. I played for so many. I just go. I could never play prop. I could never, ever do what they do. I mean, they're insane. I went with a guy back in the day called Darren Garforth, who played Leicester prop, who's an England legend. And Garth was, he's top bloke, but he was covered in psoriasis. So I didn't, A, know where to look, B, just like what to touch. Because I thought, I was young at the time. I was like, oh my God, what do these props do and get up to? And when we went to bed, I was obviously, worried at being his roomie, and he snored so loudly. And I do remember him blowing off and snoring at the same time. I just thought these people are very special, talented individuals, and I would never mess with them and never, ever think about playing their position. They are a law and species unto themselves, and I love them to death.
No, that's brilliant. That's a great answer. And one more final question from me. If you could go back in time and give your 16-year-old self a piece of advice, whether it be rugby or life, what would it be?
Well, that's a great question. I think I was certainly a player that wanted to do the right thing, but also wanted to be liked, if that makes sense. And I got really affected by what people said. And obviously then I would read the press as well. And it affected me massively. Yeah. It put me on a massive downer and doubted myself just by people's opinions and might be a player, might be press, it might be whoever in the stadium, supporter. And I think if I was to give myself the advice again, it would be, it only matters what is in your head. Yes, have all the best intentions, manners, have positive attitude, all that stuff. But it should not matter and affect you what other people are saying and what other people are quoting. Obviously, the closest people to you and whatever, but reading all this stuff, it really is immaterial and doesn't matter. And I did get affected by it, and I would go back in a heartbeat and say, stop it. Don't read it. It's a nonsense. And by the way, this was, I got dropped on teletext right? Now, I knew I was out of the squad on teletext. This was the days before social media, Twitter,
Dom doesn't know
Instagram.
We might have to
teletext
explain
is.
what teletext is to Dom.
Yeah, what
Dom's
is this?
a bit young.
There's a red button on your TV, and it used to come up with a big screen with the news, the weather, and holidays. You'd get your holidays on there as well.
Don't tell Dom that. Every time he sees a program that tells him to press the red button, he turns the telly off. He just can't work it out.
So that would be my sort of message to myself is, you know, and even worse now, right? Do not, and I do it with my kids. Doesn't matter what it's, you know, just don't listen to it. It's nonsense.
So before we go, obviously we're big on mental health, as we alluded before. Dodgers Rugby is there for mental health, martial and men's minds. What advice would you give to those who are struggling at the moment, given the current climate, whether it's work, rugby, just lockdown? What advice would you give to these people who are suffering, and what would you say and how to combat it, and what help they need to go get?
Yeah, I mean, I can only speak from, you know, a wee bit of experience on it. And you know, exercise is number one for me, just getting out, whether it's a dog walk or a run, playing golf. I did, you know, this afternoon, just did 9 holes and with the dog, just to get my head right. I just say exercise is key. And then the second point really for me is I always entrusted people and found a good mentor, or found, you know, somebody that could help me. It doesn't have to be a best friend or whatever, but somebody you trust, you know, with advice and everything. And so talking is number one. Picking up the phone and speaking to somebody is so vital. Just talking, you know, and finding somebody that will listen well, and, you know, obviously give the right advice. But if you bottle it up, it's going to get worse. You know, if you don't exercise, it's going to get even worse. Just getting out there, talking is really my experience. I'm not, you know, a psychologist, but that does help and work for me. You know, whether or not you can find in somebody that has similar symptoms or has gone through similar things, or somebody that hasn't, you know, just find that right person for you.
Excellent. No, great advice.
Great advice.
And
Brilliant.
absolute privilege having what I would say is rugby royalty on the.
Very much so.
Thank you very much for joining us, and hopefully we can get you back on when rugby starts on, and we can get some insights onto that. And obviously, once lockdown's finished, we can see how our business is doing. Obviously, I'll be keeping an eye on business, given my my field of work. But yeah, thank you for joining us tonight.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Brilliant.
Perfect. Thanks very much.
No worries.
Cut.
Guys, take care.